non-stop biting, ear-splitting barking, pulling on the leash like a sled dog, jumping up on you like they've never seen a human before. Puppies are wild. I used to call my dog Oliver a toothy tornado because all he would do is run around in circles and bite everything in sight. Now look at him. He's a sweet, calm, adult dog. Sometimes. But how did we survive the crazy puppy days? This video will show you how. Alright, what's up everybody? I'm Jake and welcome to Golden Hearts, where we talk about all things golden retrievers and puppies. If your puppy is currently going wild, don't worry. In a few minutes, they're going to be tired from acting out and they're going to take a nap and you're finally going to have some peace and quiet. And if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, in just a few months, they're going to be out of this puppy phase and finally be calm, well-behaved adult dogs. And if you've tried everything to get them to calm down and finally behave, and nothing has worked, it's not your fault. Many of the things that we're going to talk about in this video are actually counterintuitive to having a relaxed, well-behaved dog. And know this, your dog isn't trying to drive you nuts on purpose. They've got a ton of energy, raging hormones, and they don't quite yet know right from wrong. So whether you have a puppy that's biting incessantly, trying to bark your ear off, pulling on the leash, is hating crate training, or is even a Velcro dog, these 5 things that you can do every day will help you out a ton. The first thing you can do is to socialize your dog. This is probably one of the most misunderstood and underrated aspects of raising a puppy. If you want a calm, confident, well-behaved adult dog, one of the best things that you can do is socialize them. Also, my biggest mistake in raising my dog Oliver was not socializing him enough, and that's led him to become a little bit more anxious and disobedient than he probably otherwise would have been. Most people think that socialization is just getting your dog used to people and other dogs, but it's a lot more than that. It's also getting them comfortable around other animals like cats or horses. It's getting them used to strange sounds like the garage door or maybe a loud bus or truck. And it can also be getting them used to people in different situations, such as people on skateboards or people in wheelchairs or men with hats and beards. The other day I was at Home Depot and I was in the self-checkout line with my dog Oliver. He was laying down and this old lady came whipping her motor scooter around the corner. It freaked Oliver out. He jumped up and almost pulled me over. Now this probably happened because 1, she came in way too close and way too hot. But 2, I don't think Oliver has ever seen a lady on a scooter before, so that freaked him out. When your puppy is young and impressionable, you want them to get used to as many things as possible so they know that they're not scary. But when you're socializing your puppy, it's important that they have positive or at least neutral experiences with everything. So how do you actually do that? Veterinary behaviorist Dr. Chris Pockle has an excellent strategy for it. Every day, you set aside 5 special treats that are for a new situation that your dog experiences. For example, maybe your neighbor gives your puppy a treat so they learn that other people are friendly too. Or maybe when the garbage truck drives by, you give them a treat so that they learn that it's not scary. After 4 weeks of doing this, your puppy is going to have positive experiences in 140 different situations. Some other ideas for socializing your puppy might be setting up a play date with a vaccinated dog. This is good because your puppy's going to get some exercise, they're going to learn how to interact with other dogs, and they're going to help learn acquired bite inhibition. I'll link a blog post down in the description for more information about acquired bite inhibition and puppy biting, but just know that playing with other dogs can help your puppy not bite as much. Another great way to socialize your puppy is to enroll them in a puppy training class. They'll get to socialize with other dogs and other people, you'll get to practice obedience training, and probably the most important thing, you're going to get some emotional support for all the other people who are going through the same crazy puppy phase that you're going through. You could also bring your puppy to a dog-friendly store, like Home Depot, or a brewery, or a coffee shop, or a restaurant. But now you're probably wondering, what about vaccinations? What if my dog isn't fully vaccinated? I can't take them anywhere, right? Well, here's the thing. Of course, you're not going to take them to the dog park, and you're not going to take them to the fire hydrant in the neighborhood that all the dogs pee on. But you could take them to a place like Home Depot, bring a blanket, put that in the cart, and leave them in the cart, so they're not really getting into anything that could get them sick, but they're still experiencing the sights and the sounds and the smells of a busy store. Now, socialization can be tough, especially if you're a homebody like me that never wants to do anything and just wants to stay home, or if there's a shutdown because of a global pandemic. But here's the thing, socialization is so important for your puppy's future that you're going to need to be intentional about doing it every single day. And at the very least, all these new experiences will be exhausting for your puppy, so that when you get home, they'll be ready for a nice nap and you'll get some nice peace and quiet. If more people socialize their dogs, we'd have fewer abandoned dogs and happier dogs and people. So if you just learned something about socialization, give this video a like so that more people can see it and we can have fewer abandoned dogs. The second thing that you can do with your puppy every day to help them not be so crazy is to exercise them. So when you think of exercise, what do you think of? You probably think of someone lifting weights or plodding away on a treadmill. Yes, that is part of exercise, that's physical exercise. But with dogs, there's another aspect of it, mental exercise. We'll talk more about that in a second, but first, let's go over physical exercise. This type of exercise can include playing games like fetch or tug, doggy play dates, or even just you wrestling with your puppy. Now, one really cool thing that you can do with physical exercise is to work in training in your games. So let's say, for example, you're playing tug. As you're playing tug, you can ask them to drop it, and then you could ask them to shake or sit or down or work in any other command that you're playing. And the good thing is you're going to have their complete attention because they're playing a game and they want to resume playing the game. So they're more likely to do whatever you ask them. Another great game to play with your puppy is chase. Now this is really cool because when your puppy is chasing you, you're actually getting them used to running towards you, which will help later on life when you're trying to teach them the recall command. One game that my wife and I love playing with our dog Oliver is what we call tennis. So we'll go to the backyard, we'll each have a couple of treats, and we'll take turns calling him to us. He's getting a ton of physical exercise because he's running back and forth, and we're positively reinforcing him to come to us. We're really just working on the recall command, but he thinks it's a game. If you have a small puppy, you can do the same thing in your living room. Even if they don't know what come means yet, just by making noise or squeaking a little ball or showing them treats, he's definitely going to run towards you. Now there are a few problems with giving your dog too much physical exercise. For one, young puppies' bodies are still developing, so it's not good for them to run around too much or to jump off from high things. And two, if you have an older puppy, then too much physical exercise can actually turn them into a super athlete where they just need more and more and more exercise, and you're just spending more and more time playing fetch with them. Dog trainer Steffi Trott from Spirit Dog Training was the one that introduced me to this concept. And after I read about it, I realized that I was turning my dog Oliver into a super athlete. Thankfully, there's an easy fix for turning your dog into a super athlete or having a puppy that's too young for too much physical exercise, and that is mental exercise. Mental exercise can include training your puppy or giving them puzzle toys where they can work for a food reward. Socialization, like we just talked about, also helps a lot with mental exercise. So you might be wondering, how does this help with crate training or barking or biting or pulling on the leash? A mentally and physically satisfied dog is going to have much less pent-up energy that they would otherwise take out by barking or biting or pulling on the leash. Plus, a dog that is mentally and physically tired is going to settle down in the crate much faster and is going to make crate training much easier. Later in this video, I'll share with you a tip to get them used to being alone in the crate. And the next video after this one is about getting your puppy to stop crying in the crate, which will definitely help make training a lot easier and save you from a bunch of headaches. So here's a question for you. What is your puppy's favorite game? Let me know down in the comments because I am always looking for new games to play with my puppy Oliver. Plus, it'll be helpful for everybody else to get some new ideas of games to play with their puppy. Now, speaking of mental exercise, the next thing that you can do every day to help your puppy not be so crazy is to train them. Not only can training help you mentally wear out your puppy, but can also help them be more confident and help with your communication with them. If your dog is confident and mentally satisfied, he's going to be much less wild and it's going to be much more peaceful for you as a puppy owner. Now, what kind of training you do with your puppy is going to be dependent on how old they are. If your puppy is really young, you're just going to do basic things like luring them or teaching them their name or teaching them to sit. And if you've got a teenager puppy or a puppy that's a few months old and more experienced, then your training would be a little bit more advanced. So you'd be teaching them things like stay or teaching them how to come or maybe even teaching them tricks like roll over or shake. If you want to learn more about training your puppy, then I'll link some blog posts down in the description for you. Now, if you've got a really young puppy, you might want to know when should you start training them? And the answer is right away. Puppies are sponges and they're always learning. They're either learning good habits or bad habits, so you've always got to be reinforcing the good habits. And you'll be surprised at how much young puppies can learn with just a little bit of motivation from a tasty treat. Now, another thing that will really help with training that we haven't talked about yet is your bond with your puppy. They say that a good friend will pick you up from jail, but a great friend will be the one right next to you saying, dude, that was awesome. So if you want to build a bond with your puppy, then you've got to do things together. You've got to train together. You've got to exercise together. You've got to play together. And having a strong bond will definitely help with this next tip, handling your puppy. Handling your puppy is getting them used to having their paws, ears, mouth, and tail touched. Why does this help them with being crazy? Well, let's just say, for example, you go to the vet. If your puppy isn't used to having their mouth or their paws or their tail touched, and then your vet goes and tries to touch everything, then they're going to freak out. Also, let's say that you take your puppy to the groomer. You're going to want your dog to be used to getting touched all over because that's what the groomer is going to do. And whether it's you or the groomer, your puppy's going to need to get used to getting their paws touched because they're going to need their nails clipped often. They also need to have their teeth brushed, so they need to get used to someone touching their mouth. And then they're also going to need to have their ears cleaned, so they're going to need to get used to people touching their ears. They say that you need to dig your well before you're thirsty, and you definitely want to get your puppy used to being handled before they actually need to be handled. You can get this process started by doing it gently when they're in a calm mood. So let's say they're relaxing, you want to touch their ears, and then give them lots of treats and praise to let them know that getting their ears touched is a good thing. You do the same thing with their paws and their tails and their mouth. Another thing that you want to get them used to before you actually have to do it is you leaving them. There was a big problem with pandemic puppies where people just stayed at home for weeks and weeks on end, and the puppy was never left alone. Then when the owner actually had to go somewhere and leave the puppy alone, the puppy flipped out. So this is one thing that you can gradually do when your puppy's young to get them used to you leaving. So for instance, let's say you just walk into another room and come right back in. And then you walk into a room, you close the door a crack, and then you come right back. And then you close the door, you wait for 2 seconds, and then you come right back in. By gradually getting your puppy used to being alone, it's not going to be a shock when you actually have to leave them. The same thing goes with riding in a car. Riding in a car can be part of their socialization. You can just ride around the neighborhood, get them to have a good time, and then when they get out, give them a bunch of treats and a bunch of praise. What you don't want to happen is the first time they get in the car, it's a long, bumpy ride, they get car sick, and then when they finally get out of the car, they're at the vet and they get some shots. Then they get back in the car and it's more bumpy rides, more stop and go, and then more getting sick. Instead, break the car down into baby steps, do short little joy rides, and make it fun every step of the way. The next thing that you can do if you want to have a less crazy puppy is to make sure they're getting enough naps. Now this can be counterintuitive, because if your puppy is going wild, then you might think that maybe they need more exercise. But it could actually be the opposite. They might just need more sleep. My nephew is 2 years old, and when he gets tired, what do you think he does? You think he goes in his bed and lays down peacefully because he's tired? Absolutely not. No, he throws a temper tantrum. He starts crying and screaming, and he's irrational. Puppies are exactly the same when they're overtired. 8-week-old puppies need about 18 hours of sleep, and that's sleeping through the night plus a couple 1 or 2 hour naps sprinkled throughout the day. Making sure that they get enough sleep is really important for their developing bodies and their developing brains. Plus, it's also important for their mood and your sanity. And just like toddlers don't want to take a nap when they're tired and cranky, puppies usually don't want to lay down when they're all amped up either. So how do you get a puppy to lay down and go to sleep when they don't want to? Here are 2 tips. The first tip is to put them in a quiet place with few distractions, like their crate or a playpen or a quiet room. If they're in a crate, then you can cover it with a blanket so there are even fewer visual distractions. The second tip is to give them a chew toy. Chewing and licking is calming for dogs, so when I want Oliver to lay down and he's being wild, I'll give him a chew toy with a little bit of peanut butter on it. You can watch this video for Oliver's favorite chew toys, but getting a puppy to focus on chewing is one of the best ways to get them to calm down and to ease them into sleep. Now, one of the best ways to tell your puppy that it's time to go to sleep is to put them in a crate. But what happens when they start crying when you do that? This next video will give you 9 tips for how to stop your puppy from crying in the crate that will save you a ton of headaches. You'll not only learn how to stop the pitiful puppy crying, but you'll also learn what makes it worse that you're probably accidentally doing. Now, if this video is helpful, give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more tips on how to raise your puppy. Alright, I'm out. Thank you for watching, and remember, never take your puppy for granted and always check your poop bags for holes.